Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm going to call this this regular meeting of council to order. First, I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on a traditional territory of the Sinawas First Nation. First item on the agenda is adoption of the agenda. I'll just make the motion that the October 3rd, 2021 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented. Second by Councillor Savage. Any discussion on the agenda? Councillor Geselbracht.
Yes, I think Councillor Wilson is unmuted, or is unmuted. Yes, there's a couple of minor items at the end that won't take much time, and I think we should move them up. So that's items 12B and 12D, having to do with the leak adjustment and the appointment for the local election. If we could move those two up to the just preceding item 10, unfinished business.
Do we have a seconder to that? Okay, seconded by Councillor Proctor. Any discussion? Okay, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, I really don't like moving things around the agenda. It's a very short agenda tonight, shouldn't take long. So unless there's critical things that are very likely not to be gotten to, otherwise I just like leaving things in order. So I won't be supporting the changes, thank you.
Okay, for myself, it is a rather short agenda, so I don't see really the rationale in moving these items forward, but if that is the will of council, then so be it. So, any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. So I guess we're just adopting agenda with just moving those items up. So all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, no any Councillor Savage is opposed, it carries, or the agenda is approved. All right, so that takes us on to item...
Sorry, could you just do a revote there? It looked like Councillor Wilson was opposed.
I don't know. Okay, I'll call the question again. All those in favor and opposed? Okay, knowing Councillor Savage and Councillor Wilson are opposed, it carries. All right, that takes us on to item 7 of our agenda, so we just have the consent agenda. I'll just make the motion that the recommendations listed for 7A in the consent agenda be approved. Oh, Councillor Geselbracht, if you don't mind turning your microphone off too, thanks. Do we have a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Savage. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that is carried unanimously. That takes us on to item 8 of the agenda. So I don't know if anybody's registered this evening for public input. So staff is indicating no one has registered, so that takes us on to item 9 of our agenda under legislative matters. So we have bylaw number 287. There's a motion there. Someone prepared to make that motion? Okay, I'll just make the motion then that the District and Lantzville Council Procedure Bylaw number 141 2020 Amendment Bylaw number 287 2021 be given first, second, third readings. Is there a seconder to this? Okay, second by Councillor Geselbracht. Any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Geselbracht.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make an amendment.
Okay, go ahead, make your amendment.
I'm just looking for
Okay.
this section. It's a section dealing with clarification. Perhaps staff could help me locate that, where it is in the amended.
That is on page 3 of the amendment bylaw. It's item E. It's by striking section 22, public clarification.
Yeah, I see that on page 10 of my agenda.
That's correct.
And I would like to amend this bylaw by striking that proposed amendment.
So by striking item 1E.
Second.
Correct.
So perhaps Director Coates, you can just read that back to us for council's benefit, please.
That the motion on the floor be amended by adding, as amended, by striking item 9, sorry, I've lost the page. Sorry, item 1E.
Okay, thank you. Discussion on amendments with you, Councillor Geselbracht.
Yes. Pardon me, taking note of previous comments that the public, during COVID especially, although the public can attend these meetings, and I don't see anybody here tonight. It's at the end of the meeting. I personally have probably not been in favor of this, but I think we should leave it in. It's a chance for the public who does come, or I guess even the ones who would use the electronic attendance, could voice their opinion or ask a question regarding anything that is taking place during the council meeting. So I think it's only fair to leave that in and give the public that further opportunity to weigh in on matters before council. Thank you.
Any additional speakers to this item?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I don't want to be taking an opportunity for people to get clarification at the end of a meeting with respect to what happened within the meeting. So I'd like to leave it in.
Okay, Councillor Proctor.
I would like to leave it in because I think we need to offer the public as many chances as possible to create a dialogue. And the public clarification period is important in my mind.
Okay, and Director Coates, I saw that your hand was up.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify for council that the reason it's been deleted is because we drafted the bylaw based on what the practice has been for the last year and a half, and there has not been an opportunity for public clarification. The agendas indicated that if anybody had a question about what happened at the meeting, that they could email staff. I think we only received one, so that's one factor. The other factor is that it's an opportunity only to ask a question to clarify what happened. So if somebody couldn't hear what had happened, it's not a question to reopen the debate or to provide comment about the decision of council. The other factor is that if council's going to continue to have hybrid meetings, it's very challenging to provide an opportunity for public clarification through the Zoom system. It seemed that it would be an inequity if we allowed people when we do get the public to attend, to be able to stand and ask a question to clarify what happened at the meeting. But for those who are on Zoom, we have not offered that. And the reason we don't offer it is because they would have to register during the meeting in order to participate in that. And when they register in that way, we don't get any advance information, and so it could be open to confusion.
Okay, Councillor Geselbracht, go ahead.
As to Director Coates' last point, I think that can be adequately handled by the chair. The chair is there to conduct the meeting, and if someone is confused about what can be said during clarification, I'm sure the chair can assist them. So I don't think that's a reason, and hopefully people will start attending the chambers here, and to have something clarified. We have a fairly well-educated populace here in Lantzville, and I think they would be able to navigate the Zoom complexities. I know it is daunting sometimes, but with a little bit of preparation ahead of time, and knowing how that you register, which is all provided on our website, I think we can overcome that. So I'm fully in favor of keeping the clarification period in. Thank you.
Additional speakers on this item? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
I believe in the council procedure bylaw that there's two sections which refer to public clarification period. One is 19.1.0 and the other is 22.1. So for 22.1, well, actually for both of them, you would simply remove the amendments in order to delete it, and I'll certainly support this. It's a bit of a reward, the way I see it, over the years, is for people that take the time to show up to meetings, that yes, it literally means that they may ask questions on clarification, or clarify what was said in the meeting, but that's open to a wide interpretation. So generally, as long as they stick to items that are on the agenda, you can phrase questions with comments within them. So I don't think it's been strictly upheld to the absolute letter of what it says. Not for the many years I've seen council meetings where the public has commented. So for that reason, I would like to keep it in. Also, the more public input, the better. So those are the two key reasons. And I believe this did come up already. And when we did the procedure bylaw a couple of years ago, and it was proposed to be taken out, and it was kept in. So anyway, I would stick with that. So I'll support this. Thank you.
Okay, Director Coates, I see your hand was up again.
Yes, I just want to clarify that, in fact, yes, it would need to be an amendment as amended by striking 1C, which reads in Section 19, Order of Proceedings, by striking O, public clarification, and in 1E, which is the actual public clarification clause. And sorry if I made it sound like the public would have trouble interpreting the rule. That was not the case. We've certainly had great success with the public participating in Zoom. It's just the issue of, we are usually asked who is on the call, who wishes to speak, and we wouldn't have that information. When someone registers during the meeting, we have to keep watching the monitor to see if another name shows up, and we don't get the email that we would usually get when somebody registers. It was probably the detail I should have provided. Thanks.
So through to you, Director Coates, are you recommending that we just strike the relevant sections in 1A and C? Is that in addition to what's on the floor?
That's not my recommendation, but if council wishes to do that, you would need to do 1C and 1E to achieve what you want to achieve.
Okay. All right, so through to council, just through unanimous consent,
1E.
just to add to the amendment on the floor by striking the relevant sections in 1C and E. So if anybody's objecting, this would be the time to do so. Okay, seeing no objections, does that work for you, Director Coates? Okay, thank you. Councillor Geselbracht, I saw that your hand was back up again. Okay. You know, I'll speak to this real briefly. If this is what council wishes to do, that's fine. With respect to the clarification questions, this is pretty strict, and it doesn't really create dialogue, it's just clarification. So if someone wants to know about how we voted on a specific agenda item or what the outcome of that was, because they maybe didn't hear the outcome or didn't understand it, that's all we'd be clarifying. It is not to open it up for comment and to give pats on the back or criticism or anything of that nature. It is simply just to clarify what actually had happened during any of our business items. So it's pretty narrow scope. Again, if this is the will of council, so be it. Any additional comments, questions, debate on this item? I will call the question then. All those in favor, and this is on the amendment, sorry. So, okay, that's carried unanimously, and then we're moving on to back to the main motion as amended. Okay, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yes, I have 3 short amendments, please. The first one is simply, I believe, public hearings should be a hybrid meeting until further notice, but they should never be solely an electronic meeting, as that deprives citizens to attend in person. So my motion is that Council Procedure Bylaw number 141, 2020, Amendment Bylaw number 287, 2021, be amended as follows. In section 43.6, strike or electric meeting.
What page of the agenda is that referencing?
Sorry, just for clarity, the amendment would be to bylaw 287. It'd be striking item G, 1G, at the bottom of page 10. Striking the words "or electronic meeting."
And just to clarify to staff, please, where in the agenda are you reading these numbers you're getting?
The bylaw that's on the floor is 287. And so bylaw 287 is at pages 8 to 11 of the agenda. And the section you're referring to, which is in section 43 of the main bylaw, is referenced in item 1G, which is at the bottom of page 10.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Are you seconding? Oh, sorry, Councillor Geselbracht? Okay, so an amendment is being moved, so I'll second the amendment. So in terms
Can I please get it read back to me? Sorry.
yeah, so if Councillor Savage, if you can read the amendment again, please.
Yes, it's amended as follows. In section 43.6, strike or electronic meeting.
And sorry if I could just translate that to the bylaw that's on the floor. It would be that the motion on the floor be amended by adding, because you're adding to the motion to give it 3 readings. And as amended, sorry, I'm writing it out as I go. And as amended in clause 1G, by striking, quote, or electronic meeting.
Okay, so discussion on the motion. So we have Councillor Savage as the mover of the amendment, and then I have, I believe, Councillor Geselbracht and then Councillor Proctor.
Yes, thank you. The public are now allowed to attend council meetings in person, so there's no reason to have solely an electronic public hearing, because such a thing would disallow people to attend in person. So the hybrid meeting is the only way to go, as it allows both electronic for those who don't want to be in person and in person, so no one's being deprived of doing either. That's the idea of it.
Okay, so Director Coates?
Yes, I thought I should clarify that the legislation from the province actually requires that if there is an electronic meeting, that we provide a room where the public can attend. So the benefit from that is that if you're doing a hearing, it could be electronic, and as you know, the staff still attend here, and it's visible on the screen, the sound is here, the ability to talk into the speaker, into the microphone, so it would be the same experience, so that we would be able to accommodate if council was Zooming in, and those members of the public who wish to Zoom in, we would be able to accommodate. Our fire marshal has said 50 people in this room, and of course you have to take off staff and you have to take off space and those things, but we could still accommodate quite a few people. If we thought there would be more than that who wanted to be here, we could do a satellite out of the another space, but we would still have to have staff here to run the meeting, to get so that there's the ability for those people who prefer to Zoom in, so that we can still run the system here. But it absolutely is, I just wanted to clarify that the province has required in the legislation that there is a room for those people really who don't want to or may not have the equipment or be able to register. We haven't perhaps done a good enough job of educating the public so that they understand they can phone in, they can register through Zoom if someone can register them electronically, and then they can phone in. They can also Zoom in, which we have had people do, and then, of course, this ability would always be there for them to come here into the council chambers and attend.
Okay, so could you just clarify then, what is the difference, or what are the differences between a hybrid meeting and electronic meeting in terms of public hearings?
Yes. An electronic meeting, the definition is a meeting where all attendees participate electronically. So that means the council would be Zooming in. And by doing that, then you allow us to have more members of the public who perhaps don't want to use Zoom be able to attend here. And a hybrid meeting is one where just what you're doing tonight, where some members of council attend electronically and some members of council attend in person. And it's only with the electronic meeting that the province has mandated that you must provide a room for the public to attend.
And what about the people attending? What's the difference between the two? One, the electronic meetings, the public would be participating solely electronically, albeit they might be in another location in a room, let's say the top of the Legion. And in a hybrid meeting, would they be present where council was, or what's the difference between people?
Well, again, one is mandated and one isn't. So that's really the only difference. So your hybrid right now is a hybrid meeting, and you have some people that are, members of council are Zooming in, and your question is specifically about the public. If the public wished to, they could be Zooming in, or they could be registering by Zoom and phoning in. They've chosen not to at this point. In the, what did I start with? You're in a hybrid now. In an electronic, the difference is that it is mandated that we must provide a room. So what we were doing during, under emergency measures, COVID rules, that allowed us to have strictly all electronic, the public electronic, nobody allowed to come into the building. That was only under emergency measures. So what the province wanted to make clear was that will only happen when there's another public health order requiring it. So we would always have this room open. But as I say, by having the members of council Zoom in and as many staff as we can Zoom in, that allows us to have more people in this room. As you indicated, it could be another room. It could be, as you said, at the Legion or at Costin Hall. The challenge with that is that we have to set it up. We still have to set this room up. And the legislation actually requires that an officer, meaning a corporate officer is our understanding, needs to be at the room where they're able to attend to Zoom in. So so for a small municipality like us, it's a little more challenging. If we think about for a large event and you have a large number of people who want to participate, we still have a lot of people who would prefer not to be in large room, small rooms with a lot of people, or even large rooms with a lot of people. For some people, that's not a concern. Because the one thing I want to make clear too is, and we've got this in our notice, but I don't know if everybody's noted that, is as a municipality, as a local government, an essential service, we are not allowed to ask for vaccination passport. So anybody choosing to come, we welcome the public to come, but they need to understand that we are not checking for vaccination. So for some people, that's a hesitation for them to knowingly go into a space where we're not checking for vaccination, but by law, we're not allowed to.
Yes, okay, so just to clarify then, each type of meeting, a hybrid or an electronic, will allow a group to assemble and speak one at a time into a microphone.
The issue of how they get to speak and how they assemble is with the chair. That's the other thing, is the province has been very clear that we did not have to put anything about public hearings in our council procedure bylaw. It all goes on what is in the notice that we issue, that we have to issue a notice saying how the meeting will be conducted, how they get to participate, and the rules that the chair approves and conducts the meeting by.
Okay, that's fine. I will not be supporting this then. It sounds like we have more options and better options if we allow both to be in then. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so I have Councillor Geselbracht and then Councillor Proctor.
Did the seconder want to say anything?
Go ahead, Councillor Geselbracht.
Thank you. I've listened to Director Coates, and that sounds reasonable, especially if the province has mandated electronic meetings. It seems to me what we have here are options. The pandemic isn't over. We've gone through a number of waves. There could be more waves. And as Director Coates pointed out, not all the public feels comfortable entering into a room with other members of the public that may or may not be vaccinated. So I think it's a viable option. It includes everyone. It's not exclusive. So I'll be supporting this. I won't be supporting this amendment.
Councillor Proctor?
I don't really have anything new to add. I won't be supporting the amendment. I think it gives us more options if we leave it in, and we certainly aren't. By leaving this option in, we need to educate the public. We're not saying that they can only participate electronically, because we will be offering them a way to participate, to gather as a group and to participate into a mic that everyone will be able to hear. And I think that we need to take into account our limited equipment. We aren't a huge municipality that has a big hall, that has expensive equipment installed in it, that can run meetings in a variety of different ways. So we need to leave as many options as we can in our procedure bylaw, so that we have some viable choices that we can make. Thank you.
Okay, unless there's anything new, I'm going to call the question on the amendment. Okay, hearing or seeing nothing. All those in favor and opposed? Okay, that's opposed unanimously. Okay, so any further amendments? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
That Council Procedure Bylaw Number 141, 2020, Amendment Bylaw Number 287, 2021, be amended as follows. Insert Section 30.13. Members must vote independently and not coordinate votes with other members.
Okay, due to lack of seconder, due to lack of seconder, the amendment fails. Any further amendments? Okay, Councillor Savage.
That Council Procedure Bylaw Number 141, 2020, Amendment Bylaw Number 287, 2021, be amended as follows. Insert Section 3110. Members must not conduct council business with each other outside of authorized council meetings and must not collude, strategize, or coordinate their votes.
Okay, for a seconder. Okay, hearing none, the amendment fails. Any further amendments? Okay. Hearing none, we're back to the main motion as amended. Any further debate? Okay, hearing none, I will move to call in question. All those in favor? Opposed? Knowing that Councillor Savage is opposed, bylaw, or first, second, third readings are carried. All right, that takes us on to item 9B. So we have the grant application, so that Canada, British Columbia investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Environmental Quality. I'll just make the motion. Then application be submitted for grant funding for the WINS residential area water supply through the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, Environmental Quality, and further that the council supports the project and commits it to its share, $2,085,372, 30% of the project, as well as cost overruns funded by a local area service by council initiative subject to petition against. Seconded by Councillor Savage. Discussion on the motion. So Director Spears is on the call this evening, so I was going to ask if Director Spears had anything he would like to say in terms of introducing this before I open it up to debate of council or for questions to Director Spears.
Through your worship, I don't think there's anything to add. The report basically lays out this would probably be our best chance at actually getting funding as compared to the Clark Drive application. So I'm open to questions.
Okay, and for myself, I'm good for now. Councillor Geselbracht Councillor Savage, and then Councillor Proctor.
Yeah, I'm just hoping to get a little clarification on the water expansion figures here. So through the staff, do the cost estimates in the staff report for the WINS, do they just refer to the cost within the WINS water service area, HW1? And is the cost of bringing the pipe to the WINS service area in addition to these costs in the staff report?
Through your worship to Councillor Savage, the cost is the total cost, which includes the pipe bringing the water up to the WINS. Okay,
and so where is this pipe extension to the start of the WINS service area? Would it be from the Forest Turn Road area up to the WINS service area or another route? It seems like it's fairly long, isn't it, to get there?
It would be going from Ronald Road, basically, down past Forest Turn, up Superior Road.
Okay, and the reason I'm puzzled is the prices, the figures given seem fairly similar for Clark Drive area and the WINS area, yet the pipe, when we go to the service area vote, will be right at Alger, right within that area. So is there a reason why it's the winds is so much less, considering the length of that pipe all the way from Ronald to basically it would be the end of Harvey Road and Superior Road there, that corner?
Sorry, I didn't follow the question.
Well, it's just there's no pipe extension per se needed for the Elm Clark Drive area. The pipe will end up being right on the edge of that water service area, whereas the Winds has a long run of pipe to the service area, which is all the way from Ronald Road to the start of the HW1 area, which is around the corner of Harvey Road and Harvey Road East and Superior Road, that corner. Plus, you've got that long length that has to go all the way up Superior, all the way through the Winds and so on. It just, I'm having a little trouble understanding why the prices are so similar, or the figures.
Yes, through you, Chair, to Councillor Savage. When we're looking at going from Alger Road, you're going down Blackjack, all the way Alger, down Blackjack, and then basically what you're also doing is going up around Arbutus Crescent and all those areas. And those distances can be identified under the water main portion of the cost estimates. So if you look down at the water main, you got several different sizes of water main that has to go in. In the Winds, it kind of identifies, you know, the main costs, specifically on item 2.2. And then if you go down to the Clark Drive, the water main's 2.18, that kind of gives you an indication of how much those pipes are costing in that area. So those two differences is basically what's driving the two prices.
Yeah, okay, well, that's great. I just wanted to make sure I understood what the totality of what we were doing here was. Thanks for the clarification, I get it.
Okay, Councillor Proctor?
Thank you. I have a few questions through you to Director Spears. Does this estimate that's included for Clark Drive, does it assume that the water will already be at Alger Road, or are we supplying the trunk main in this estimate?
That assumes that the trunk main is up to Alger Road.
So this estimate for the Clark area is just the price of what it would take to bring the pipes around the neighborhood?
That's correct.
Interesting. Okay, I have some other questions. Is this Class C estimate, what are they saying that the percentage of that the estimate could be wrong by?
The Class C estimate could be anywhere between basically 30 and 40%.
Okay. If this estimate is 40% wrong, $6,951,240. 40% of that is $2,780,000 and some change. So if I add that $2 million to the existing $2,085,000, that would be $4,865,000 that's not funded by the grant. Am I right? Would they increase their share if there is a cost overrun, or are we responsible for all the cost overruns?
The local area service would be responsible for all the cost overruns.
So if this estimate is wrong by 40%, and maybe it won't be wrong by 40%, but it seems to me anything you go buy nowadays that has anything to do with construction always costs more than you think. So then the district share would be $4,865,868. If I divide that by the 144 houses that would be serviced by this, it's $33,790 a house. what if they decide not to do the local area service? Do we make that decision before we start the project, or are we kind of in the middle of it before we find out there's cost overruns?
Through the chair to Councillor Proctor, basically what we'll have is prior to any borrowing of funds, we'll actually know what the cost of the contract would be. So specifically, if it's $2 million over, we would go back to the folks and identify that, there was an increase. Same as we did in phase 3 sewer. We had to go back and ask them, do you still want this kind of thing? So that's where we would go if it came in a lot higher, but we won't know that until we actually go to tender and then get the final cost to it.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So if I understand correctly, we would go to tender and get a bid, and we'd also have a local area service agreement, and people would vote if they were willing to pay the $18,292 per house. And if that's a go, then
through the chair, yes, it's very similar to that. Basically, what'll happen is that we'll go to the public and identify whether or not they're in favor of, say, $20,000 per connection. If they are, then we do the tendering process, and then if it comes back that's higher than $20,000 per connection, we then have to go back to the LAS again and identify those increases and have another vote onto it.
oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense to me, and I'm a lot happier with that process than I was afraid we would maybe just get stuck with the extra $4 million in the end. Okay, so it's very clear, and everyone that's involved would have a chance to voice their opinion on what they're willing to pay for their local area service. So I think that it would be really good idea for us to go ahead with this grant application. I'll be supporting this motion, and everyone will be aware all the way through the process of what it's going to cost them, and the people on Northwind and Southwind will be able to share their opinions with us on what they think of it. Thank you.
Okay, Director Coates.
I think Director Spears covered it. I just want to confirm that this is step one. It's the grant application. If the grant comes through, and then if the numbers don't have to be refined further, then we'd be presenting to council a local area service establishment bylaw and a borrowing bylaw. We go through that process with the province of reviewing those documents, and then we would be doing the alternate approval process through the local area service. And just as he mentioned, if we had the approval, and then once the tender's issued, it came in higher, just as we did with the phase 3, we would have to go back and do amendment bylaws and take it back to those voters, the property owners within the local area service.
And for myself, just a couple of quick comments, and while we have Director Spears on the line, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to these questions, but it's important for people to have these questions asked and have it on record, so to speak. So first question has to do with if this all goes through and the local area service is approved and so forth, just to clarify or confirm that people still do not have to hook up to water if they don't want to. Is that correct?
To your worship, basically what usually happens during a local area service is that the area, if it's in favor of the hookup or of the cost of the hookup, then it's mandatory within that local area service to hook up.
Oh, I was under the understanding it wasn't that. With water, you could leave basically your connection at the road, not physically connect, but it would be a mandatory hookup.
Yes, it would be a mandatory hookup.
Okay, that's great. That clarifies information for myself. And then with that mandatory hookup, what about the Nanaimo Lantzville connection or water fee? So that would be in addition to the local area service amount?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Well, those are my two questions. Through to the rest of the council. Any further questions, debate? Okay, Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Yes, since you brought it up, Mayor Swain, to staff, is there a particular reason that people have to hook up? After all, they've already covered the cost of delivering the pipes and the system throughout the whole neighborhood. So is there a reason why they have to connect? And is that something in our bylaw that could be changed, or in the water service area regulations that could be changed?
Sorry, through your worship to Councillor Savage, I believe it is in the water use bylaw. However, it's usually also a condition of grant funding.
Yeah, well, yes, of course. If it's the grant, yes, of course it would be. So I see, right. So it's grant related. That's probably the reason then, yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, good. Any further questions for staff or any further debate on the motion? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Proctor.
I have one further question through to Director Spears. If a neighborhood voted, if more than 50% of the people wanted to hook up, and we went ahead with the project, and then some people didn't hook up, then we wouldn't be getting their share of the local area service funds from them, would we?
Through your worship to Councillor Proctor, it would be the same as different phases of the sewer projects. It would be the same type of system. If the hookup didn't happen, we would go on the property and do the hookup, and there would be a charge to that property.
Thank you.
Actually, I just had one further question or comment. So in reality, you know, the individuals in say in the Winds, if this all goes through, they would have two water parcel taxes. They'd have the one that would be for paying back in the local area service, and then they would have the parcel tax for their water use or water fees. Is that correct, Director Spears?
To your worship, basically what will happen at the end of the day is that the water connection fees is a one-time fee. However, the water parcel tax that you're identifying is over the life of the 20 years or 30 years, whatever it takes to pay back the funds to the local area service. Other than that, what they'll be paying is a cost of using the water.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, unless there's any further questions for staff, I will be calling the question. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Yeah, just one more to follow up on the same topic, please, to staff. So without a grant, let's say the Clark Drive service area goes ahead just for the vote without any grant involved. Is there a reason beyond the grant why they would have to hook up? For example, in the Nanaimo Water Agreement, if they're on Nanaimo Water, does the connection fee become due and payable when there's a connection provided right up to their property line, or is it only due and payable when they hook up?
Through your worship to Councillor Savage, these are a lot of interesting questions. One of the things I think we'd have to look at is whether or not the bylaw has been changed to allow them not to hook up. I guess the other thing is how do you get the funding in place if people are not actually hooking in? So I'm not sure if this would fall under the realms of possibility, but if it did, basically I think what we would be looking at is the connection fee. As soon as we drop the connection off, there would be a fee charged to that property for the Nanaimo connection. And at that point, we wouldn't be installing a meter, so there would be no ongoing costs until such time they did a physical connection.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking is if one wants to make the vote going through or making it as advantageous as possible for the most amount of people to vote for the water, because there are people in need there in the Blackjack area, that it might be a deciding factor. I talked to a number of people in Blackjack that have excellent wells, and they don't want to replace their great well water with anything else. So for them, if it might make the difference of voting yes, that they would not have to hook up, they could continue to enjoy their good well water and avoid the quarterly fees, because they've already made the investment for their well. That's the idea. However, the selling point for people in this position could be that two things. Number one, it's a backup system, which is exceptionally important, as we've learned in the winds. If your well suddenly takes a turn for the worst, you have a second option. And the second thing is that if you're selling your property, sometimes that's a good selling point, having a backup system for those that have never been on a well system and are looking for community water. So that's the impetus of my questioning, is to put residents in the best position possible to vote yes, and that could be a determining factor if they love their well water and they don't want to be forced onto a Nanaimo chlorinated water. So that's why I ask. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, just to kind of follow up on that, I think you're right. At the end of the day, I mean, there is a possibility of doing that. It would take an amendment to the water bylaw, and from there, it could be done.
Great, thank you. And it's not unprecedented, because in Nanaimo, it was funny how many years later people would hook up the sewer, yet they had it right outside their house for many, many years. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Proctor?
Have a question through you to Director Spears. This estimate for the Clark area water servicing, $6,575,000. If I divide that by the 160 homes in that area, it's approximately $41,000 a home to hook into water. Am I correct there?
Through the chair, yes.
And if some people didn't hook up, and then we wouldn't recoup our whole $6,575,000. Am I right?
If the local area service went through, the hookup itself, if they didn't do a hookup themselves, it wouldn't, as long as they're paying for it, we'd be able to do it. They don't necessarily, if there's no involvement of the actual having to hook up, then as long as they pay for it, then it's possible.
Do you have any idea what the cost would be if the developer wasn't bringing the water main to Alger?
Through your worship, no, I don't. I haven't looked at the actual cost of what it would be for that line specifically.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Coates?
Yeah, maybe I lost the thread here, but I just wanted to clarify. I think the suggestion was if we weren't getting a grant, then could people not hook up? Okay, so they would still have to pay the local area service, and it would be, well, obviously over $2 million more if we weren't getting the grant.
Okay. All right, I'm going to call the question. So all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. So We had a little reshuffling of the agenda, so that takes us to item 12B.
Wait.
I think that was the one, no?
Didn't go through. It was defeated, I thought.
No? Wasn't.
Okay.
So we have a reshuffling of the agenda, so we're on to 12B. So we have the leak adjustment request, utility account 001-09948182-0006836 Harwood Road. So I'll make the motion that the request for adjustment to utility account number 001-0994-182-000 for 6836 Harwood Drive be approved. So we have a second by Councillor Savage. Discussion on the motion. I'm good. Through to the rest of the council, or to the seconder, Councillor Savage, if you wish.
Know that this is just commonly done where we forgive high bills due to leaks, problems, and so on. So it's customary we approve them. Thank you.
And through to the rest of the council, I see Director Coates, yeah.
I just want to clarify that the motion was for approval,
Approval, yes.
so that would be authorized, alternative number 1? As it has the
So through the
additional,
council, I should
has
have
the
read out the
additional
recommendation.
information that
Yeah.
gives you the dollar amount and everything? Yeah.
So through to council, the motion I should have read is that the request for leak adjustment to the utility account already mentioned be authorized in an amount of $439.96 in contravention of the water system bylaw number 140. So that's the motion. So unless anybody opposes that, Councillor Geselbracht?
I just noted that in our bylaw, and it's set out in the materials, that someone asking for an adjustment, they have to supply invoices showing that the adjustment, that they've paid for it, and I don't think they need somebody like a plumber to say it's been done, but I think in future that we get a little more documentation from residents who've had leaks and want us to forgive that. I just mentioned that it helps staff to look at it, and it goes into the materials so council can make an informed decision. Thank you.
Okay, any additional discussion before I call the question? Hearing or seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's, I believe, carried unanimously. And takes us on to item 12D. So this is the appointment of the 2022 general election, or general local election and assent voting election officers. So I'll make the motion that pursuant to section 58(1) and 2 of the Local Government Act, Trudy Coates be appointed as chief election officer for conducting the 2022 general local election and assent voting, with the power to appoint other election officials as required for the administration and conduct of the 2022 general local election and assent voting. And further, that Nelda Richardson be appointed as deputy chief election officer for the 2022 general local election and assent voting. Seconder to the motion. Second by Councillor Geselbracht. Any discussion? This is more of a housekeeping motion. Go ahead, Councillor Savage.
Thank you. In the staff report, it references election and assent bylaw number 160. So at the next council meeting, I'll be proposing an amendment to that bylaw. And the two people who are being proposed as election officers, believe me, are more than competent to do so. But the issue is public perception of who is managing the election. And my belief is there should always be, from this point going forward, and perhaps always should have been, non-staff election officers from outside of Lantzville, so there is always a public perception of a neutral third party conducting the election. And I think it's just best from this point going forward to always have outside election officers who have no dealings with candidates or direct involvement in Lantzville issues. So I'd like to make a motion to refer this item back to staff so that a chief and deputy election officer who have no dealings with Lantzville or council can be found, and then bring back to council this motion with those new names.
So through to Councillor Savage, are you making a referral motion?
Yes, please.
Yeah. And do we have a seconder for the referral motion back to staff? Okay, hearing none, the referral motion fails due to lack of seconder. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, I will move to calling the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Noting that Councillor Savage is opposed, that it carries. All right, so that takes us back to 10A in our agenda under municipal water service. There's no mover or seconder required for this motion with respect to the town hall meetings regarding water service expansion. I'll open it to the floor for discussion. I guess I'll lead into it real brief. I think it's pretty self-explanatory with respect to this motion that's on the floor. It's really just to bring in those two areas of the community and into the discussion with respect to where are we at with respect to water, and not having to go through the various council meeting minutes and videos to try and find the information. So it'd be nice to have in one spot or one reference point, or it could be a video of a town hall where people can get all their answers in one place. So I think it would be quite nice for residents to have that information and to be updated on where we're at. So seconder, I think, was it? Oh, no, there is no seconder. So I have, who do we got? So Councillor Savage, and then we'll start the speakers list.
Yes, I think this is extremely important to do. Funnily enough, I remember a motion back in the last council in September 2018 to do the same thing, and it wasn't gotten around to. But it really is important for just so many reasons. I remember this one person I met a few years ago in a home on Blackjack that was just dying to finally get some good water, and it wasn't just him. There was a number of people, and I've been hoping at some point that all these people could be told where we're at, what grants have been applied for, which ones failed, what the plan is going forward, rough dates, roughly the money involved. And it's not just for people that have bad water. It can be for others that are willing to support water coming to their neighborhood, even if they have good water. And it might be for a few reasons. It might be to support those without water. It might be as a backup system and so on. But the more lead time we give them, the more they can organize their budgeting, because it is going to be an increase in annual payments for them. And so they can plan ahead for it. So there's no downside to this. And I think people would be happy to hear all this, in particular the people in the Clark Elm area that will know roughly when they can expect their water service area vote will take place, so they can get prepared for it, talk with each other and so on. And another issue that should be discussed with them is that it's likely the best time to conduct the service area vote is once in the Clark Drive area, once that pipe's been completed, because then the costs will be as close and updated as they can be at that point. Otherwise, if they have a water service area vote now and then wait a few years, to be able to activate it, the prices could be completely different. People could have moved by then and so on. So just all these things I think people would like to hear, so I'm all for it, and the sooner the better at this point. Thank you.
Additional speakers on the motion on the floor? Okay, Councillor Geselbracht.
I don't think I can support this motion for the following reasons. Councillor Savage's point about people may want to know the history of the grant applications. Well, first of all, they need to do is to turn to tonight's agenda, item 9B. The staff report sets out, I think, a very fulsome history of the two grant applications that failed for Clark and the one for the Winds. We're now making another grant application to the Winds for federal provincial financing. So that information is all there. You can dial that up on the computer and read it. Secondly, we canvassed the public. And we did an extensive study called the Water Master Plan Survey. That was a statistically important survey. I forget how many people responded, but I believe it was close to 39%. That survey, which is also, the results are set out in the staff report in tonight's agenda, under pages 40 to 45, that survey indicated that the people, the residents of the Winds, of the Clark Drive area, and Fernmar indicated they would like to hook up to water. Some there was other options, how much would it cost? But anyway, those three areas indicated an intention to hook up. They would like water. So we have that information. I don't think there's been a wholesale change of residents in Lantzville that would skew that at this point. And finally, I think that this holding a town hall meeting is premature. With respect to Clark Drive, we have a development application that's been approved. The next step, as I understand it, in that application is for the developer to come back with a phased agreement, meaning how he plans to proceed. And I would certainly hope, fervently hope, that the developer would be, the first thing he puts in is the water and sewer pipe all the way to Alger Road. I think that would be a sine qua non of this council approving any phased development application, so that people at the other end, namely Blackjack, Alger, and Clark, could then consider their options. And as we heard earlier during item 9B, is to have a vote to see if they want a local area service. That's the time to do that. With respect to the Winds, once again, it's premature. We have a grant application that's going into the federal provincial government grant program. Let's hear what it says first. If we're successful, I'm sure we'll be hearing from the folks at the Winds, and we'll be asking them. There'll be a vote. Secondly, I don't think it's a secret to anybody that there will be a development application with respect to what's commonly called the G property, or the property on Superior Road. And once again, that will include some form of extension of water and sewer up to the front gates of the Winds. And that, if that happens, then there will be a definite benefit if those pipes go through to the residents of the Winds, and at that point, they can make a decision if they want to extend it into their neighborhood. So we're premature at this point. So on that basis, I won't be supporting this motion.
Okay, any additional speakers on this motion before I call the question? Okay, Councillor Proctor.
Through you to staff, I'm curious, CAO Campbell, have you heard from anyone in either one of these areas asking about water and when they can expect water or?
Through your worship, no, I haven't.
So, and we don't have any letters. We haven't received letters, or I didn't receive any from anyone living in these areas asking for these town hall meetings. How much staff time would be involved in pursuing this town hall meeting? And do you have an idea, CAO Campbell, of what kind of information you would be giving people?
No, if council decides to hold the town hall meetings, then we'll obviously as a team get together and decide what's going to be put forward to the community at the time, which would probably be what's everything in Director Spears' report and maybe some additional financial numbers based on the grant application.
Thank you. So I think that anyone in either one of those areas could read this report or phone someone at the district office and ask a few questions and be directed to all this information. I think that having town hall meetings right now is premature. We don't have anything really to offer people other than what's in this report and what was discussed tonight. It's the first time I've heard realistic figures of what a local area service would cost. And if I lived in those neighborhoods, I would be more than happy to watch this brief part of this meeting and read this report and become educated on what's happening. And when we know some more, when we have some information such as a phased development agreement that shows when the main trunk lines will go to Alger, if we have a successful grant application for the winds, I think we need to have some public information go out. If we have a application to develop one of the properties that would help bring the water up there, I think a public education open house would be great. But at this time, I'm not sure we have that much information to give people, and I'm not sure that people are that curious because I haven't seen an indication from anyone. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
I'd like to make an amendment to this motion. Or I guess I could also defeat this motion and make a separate one. But what I'm looking at is maybe it would be better served that we actually send a letter to the residents of the Winds, as well as a letter to the Clark Blackjack Alger Road area, to update them on the status of where things are at. For example, not everybody reads the minutes or watches these meetings. I had, in my campaigning and after, I've had a few conversations with a couple residents up in the Winds where I live, but I haven't had many. So I think at this point, I think that this could be served by just sending a simple 1 or 2 page letter to the residents of these neighborhoods to give them an update as to kind of any or some of the progress that's been made. For example, applying for this grant that we just recently have, or updating the people of the Blackjack Clark Drive area that the grant that we applied, failed. So the motion, I guess, to summarize this, I'd like to say that we don't hold the town hall meeting, but we send out an update to the residents of these neighborhoods. I think it can be served just with that, to show that, hey, we're mindful of it. Progress, I don't know if it's really progress, but this is what has been done, and this is where things are at. And if you have any questions or concerns, please write council or reach out to staff. So I don't know how to formalize that into an actual motion, but that's where I think that this could be best served.
Okay, so through to Director Coates, what was,
Yes, I was just going to suggest that you may want to deal with the motion that's on the floor first.
through to, well, Councillor Geselbracht has his hand up, but through to Councillor Wilson, I think his simplest thing would be to refer this motion back to council to prepare a mail out for those two neighborhoods. It'd be that, I think that's simple, because it's just about an update, so. Councillor Geselbracht, go ahead.
Yes, I think we should deal with this motion. I like Councillor Wilson's idea. It's a separate motion in my view, and it would be a late motion tonight. And I think it would be best a motion that gets vetted with staff to get it in its proper order. Let's not forget that in the Clark Drive area, there's another community, the Elm Road, Hayes Place, etc., David Place, that those residents have a dog in this fight as well, that we know that they're on a community septic system. They have expressed interest to be able to hook into the Clark Med project. So if we're sending out any letters, let's make sure it goes to all residents in areas that might be affected or might want to hook up to the water system and sewer system that may be going in. But I think we should deal with this motion first and then deal with the other one as I indicated.
Okay, Director Coates.
Yeah, maybe my comments for the next motion. I was just going to mention that we always have the option of doing an article in the newsletter. I guess one of the challenges is we've made an application based on a boundary, based on a certain number of houses. And so it's not like we're inviting more properties to participate at this point.
Okay, Councillor Proctor.
I just wanted to say that I think that Councillor Wilson's suggestion is great. And just listening to Director Coates right now, putting something in the mail out that already goes out might be sufficient, but I don't think we have enough new information to warrant a town hall. But I do think that an update to people showing all the hard work that staff has done applying for all these grants and what's on the table in front of us right now is a really good idea. So I don't know I really don't know the best way to approach that. I'm going to leave that hands of the chair and Director Coates.
Okay, so and just to follow up through to Councillor Wilson, if you want to make a motion after this one's disposed of, then that's your call at that point. So I'm going to move to calling a question on the motion that's on the floor. So did you have new information, Councillor Savage?
Yes, I did, as Councillor Wilson's introduced some new information. So the whole key to this is people have questions, and we can't guess what those questions are going to be. I know some people have just been waiting for years upon years upon years for water. It comes up often at election time. It's come up so many times before. So believe me, the interest is there, but just to put something out, we don't know what their questions are going to be. We're giving answers to things they haven't asked. So an update's fine. We should do both. We should send out a letter and have a Zoom meeting. It's such a huge issue for a lot of people in this area. Elm Road, for example, they're in the area we're talking about in this motion, but I've talked to a number of people there that really do want it for that area, so they would really appreciate, just to give you one example, tonight I brought up, do they have to hook up? Now that will be a question that some may ask, so as I say, we can't guess what their questions are going to be. I just think after all these years, surely we can do a quick town hall, find out their questions and answer them, and then do a mail out as well. Both would give the maximum amount of information. There's no downside to this town meetings. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question. So all those in favor and opposed, Councillor Geselbracht opposed, Councillor Wilson, Councillor Proctor opposed, the motion fails. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item then. So we have under 10A2, so we have the Clark Drive local area service for municipal water service. There's the motions on the floor. Again, through to council for debate on this. And again, the spirit of the motion really is just asking for a high-level report. What would be the required steps for initiating a local area service? It's pretty straightforward. And again, this information in the report would be or could be easily made available to residents in that area so they have an idea of what are the necessary steps in a local area service and how to go about initiating such a process. So that's the essence of it. Councillor Proctor, got your hand up, so.
I think that the staff report that Director Spears prepared for tonight's agenda provides this information. And if we make a motion that we're going to send a mail out to people giving an update about the water, I guess that information about how to initiate or what the steps are to have a local service area agreement, I think that would be great to be included in the mail out so that people, it's brought to their attention. Because like Councillor Wilson said, there's a lot of people that don't watch meetings, find the agendas onerous. Numerous people have told me that they find a hard time wading through a 500-page agenda package, and you know, we all know those happen quite often. So I favor the mail out, and I hope that we'll be making that motion tonight.
Okay, any additional debate, comments on this before I call the question? Okay, I'm going to move to Colin.
So sorry, just to be clear on this, this was on the table before, and with this, how are you seeing this as part of a mail out or just separate to council or for sending out to people, or what?
It's for council's consideration. So it'd be for council's.
Yeah, well, okay, then I'll be supporting this because I would like to see it in writing. I had a few questions I asked tonight, but I'd like to see all the steps and what's required, what the options are. For example, does it have to be 50% against that has to be achieved, or 50% for? Those are two choices, and how is that going to be decided? Just these types of things. I'd like to see it all laid out in advance, so I would be supporting this. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wilson, go ahead.
This one, I see maybe some benefit to a paper report on what is needed to initiate. So, and it's just for council consideration. So, could be a part of the update that, you know, if council votes on that, that goes out.
Okay, Director Coates.
I just want to refer council to page 41 of the agenda to Director Spears' report. Certainly corporate administration provides some input on this to describe what the process is for local area service, and it is very mandated by the legislation, and specifically it's 50% of owners representing at least 50% of the assessed value of the properties. So that's very mandated. It's not something we can choose to change. It talks about local area services have to be established by bylaw. The bylaw has to describe the service, define the boundaries, identify the methods of cost recovery. For example, if it's a parcel tax, and the portion of the cost of the service that are to be recovered by the local service tax. Usually these bylaws are brought forward in tandem with a borrowing bylaw that would identify the, authorize the borrowing of the funds during the time until the local area service participants repay the district. So when we are advertising for the petition against for the local area service, it's also an ad that includes the petition against for the borrowing bylaw. Don't know much more that staff could add on that, but
Okay, so I see Councillor Geselbracht and then Councillor Proctor.
Yeah, staff's report here has a lot of information that I think would answer a lot of questions. I don't know what a high-level report is, really. All reports take staff time to prepare. They would probably take a lot of information from pages 40 to 45 of our agenda tonight. So I can't support this motion. If Councillor Wilson is intent on making a late motion tonight, or a notice of motion that would come to the next meeting, and he would have time to prepare that, the notice of motion. You know, it's tough to make these motions on the fly. And I know my preference is, if I'm thinking of a motion, I like to go to staff to make sure that I've covered all the bases, you know, not make a fool of myself when I bring it forward. So, but I think it's a good idea whether we put it in our monthly newsletter, which could be expanded, an expanded edition, or a separate letter, a resume of what we've heard here tonight, what we've read in the agenda, and what we've heard Director Spears say. I'm sure staff could put together a resume of all of that in a highly readable form to inform our public. So I would look forward to that, but I can't support this motion.
Okay, Councillor Proctor.
Thank you. I'm just reading the report. I don't print the whole agenda package off. I read it on my iPad during the meeting. So I'm reading the report, and I'm wondering, through you to Director Coates, I think that this staff report covers off all of the information that people need to know about a local area service. Would you add, I'm not sure, if you were to write a report, would you just be lifting this and putting it on another piece of paper, or is there lots of information out there that we don't have access to yet as councillors?
no, there isn't a lot of information out there. This was taken from the provincial website and put into the report. We didn't speak to a local area service by petition. The proposal here is it's by council initiative, not by petition of residents. And given the cost of the project, it's unlikely that they would want to be doing that.
I do find it unusual that council would initiate a local service area agreement. I think that it's more common that whoever lives in the area that doesn't have water gets together with their neighbors, finds out how to start a petition, and initiates the process. Right now, we haven't heard from anyone in that area that they think that their neighbors have an appetite for paying $41,000 to have water. And that's a lot of money. So I don't think I can support this, because I think all the appropriate information was put into the report that we have tonight. And we would just be asking staff to duplicate what they've already given us.
Okay, through the council, I'm not going to belabor this too much, but in the motion itself, it is just outlining the required steps for initiating. It doesn't state who. It could be council initiating, it could be the residents. More importantly, this is, you know, the intent of this is for residents to eventually get the information on how they would initiate a local area service if that's what they chose to do. So it's about giving residents the information that they need. It's not necessarily what a local area service is and providing all that background information. It's essentially what are the steps for initiating it. How do they do it? How do they bring this forward? Do they need to get 10 signatures and bring it to council? How do they do it? That's really what it comes down to. So unless there's anything further, I am inclined to call the question. So Councillor Proctor, you have your hand back up.
Yeah, just, if that, what the mayor just said to me made sense, but that's not what I read when I read this motion. So if we were to pass this motion, Director Coates, do you have enough information to understand what the gist of what we're asking is, to outline how local area residents could initiate a process?
Yes, but there's always a but. The residents would not have the information that would be required to input into an official petition for. So when we've had a resident petition to join a local area service, they spend some time meeting with staff, finding out what the service is, what they want to join, how much it was going to cost. They are paying the full cost of the connection, and then they are joining an existing service. So that's a petition for process, and then staff develop the bylaw to bring forward to council for the approval. And we certify that it's a complete petition for. So it's a very technical process. It's not somebody walking around getting their neighbors to sign a petition. It is a very technical process. And again, the bottom line is that it would be more costly.
It's more costly to have a petition for than a petition against?
The petition for is based on us providing them with the numbers of the cost. So there's no grant process involved.
Okay, that's all from now. I might have more questions. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wilson.
I'm just trying to get clarification on this. Personally, I think that, like, we're not holding a meeting here. We're just having staff provide a high-level report outlining the steps to initiate a local area service, which I think could be good information for the residents that could be included within that letter. So I'm thinking that, like, I support this if that's what that is, in the spirit of it, and then something that, something tangible that people can read and say, okay, well, these are the steps that we need to take to initiate water. But maybe I'm misunderstanding this. Through mayor to staff, I guess I'll ask the question.
It's basically, they're indicating their support when we do the local area service, if that's sort of what the concern is. If we don't start from this place of getting the grant, then bringing forward a petition, a local area service process, and then doing a petition against, and the borrowing bylaw, it's still the same complex system. So on the provincial website, it says petition for service. Each page of the petition must describe the service in general terms, define the boundaries of the local service area, provide an estimate of the cost of the service, indicate the proposed methods of cost recovery for the service, indicate what portion of the cost will be recovered by general municipal property tax, if applicable, include any other information, that council requires. So, and again, petitions are usually, it says, initiated by local residents interested in receiving a service. Because the threshold is high, petition must be signed by at least 50% of the owners, representing at least 50% of the assessed value and improvements that would be subject to the tax. This method is frequently used if the proposed local service area is small. So, I guess it's common if you're putting street lights down a street and there's 15 houses. It's not common for a whole neighborhood for water, because they're not the staff are still going to have to prepare this process. If we think we're simplifying the process at all, we're not.
Okay, unless there's anything further, Councillor Savage?
Yeah, I'll just finish off by saying this, that all these questions about local service areas simply prove that there are lots of questions and we don't know. So if we don't know, I tell you, most residents won't either. So I would like myself to get the whole summary with local service areas. I think it's important we know this. The whole process and other information too, like what's the maximum amortization rate one could do? Is it based, I assume, on the municipal finance authority rate and so on? But this is all valuable information, and if I'm a resident wanting to, or being asked to spend $40,000, $50,000, $30,000 on something, I would like to know everything and to think about it, have lots of lead time to think about it. There's no such thing as too much information. It's all very valuable, so there's no downside to this. I think it can be done quite simply, and I've never seen it all put together in one piece of paper, what's involved in local service areas and what the options are. It's these options that are so important. So if someone's initiating one, they have to know what the options are for them to present it. And the longer lead you have on these things, the more chance of success you have. Thank you.
Actually, through to staff, I did have a quick question, more so to Director Spears. I know in the motion it does say the Clark Drive area AW as identified in the Water Master Plan, but I'm kind of stepping back from that a little bit and thinking, well, what if just Alger and Blackjack wanted to connect? Could they not form a local area service just specifically for their streets? Is that a possibility? Or is it an all or nothing? It has to be the entire Clark Drive area.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Definitely, it's an option for them. Any area has an option, or any group of residents have an option of doing that.
Okay. So, I forgive me, Council, maybe it was a poorly worded motion. This one does identify the Clark Drive area, the AW. However, I think it's important for residents just in general that they know what the steps are for requesting a service. How do they do it? And I don't know, maybe staff already has a document on how to acquire a service such as water in the municipality. So that's all this is about. It's just what are essentially the steps to acquire service? And perhaps maybe I need to come back with a different motion, but.
There's not a lot of options. I guess what I've tried to describe is that staff, the general practice has been to present it as a council initiative. You apply for the grant. If and when that gets approved, then we develop the bylaws and bring it forward to council, and it's done as a council initiative. And those people who would be the taxpayer within that local area service have the opportunity to vote on that, whether they wish to participate. The other option is where it's initiated by the property owners. However, the information, the technical information that needs to go into the package is identical. And so staff are very involved, and it just has been less effective than if it's started off from the beginning with the district. Certainly, we've already talked about tonight that the Water Master Plan was the process that identified the areas, of priority. And that was through survey and need and a bunch of different factors, the effectiveness of the order in which they were done. So there's extensive information on the ministry website, which I can send out a link on that, but it's basically just describing the exact same process. And we've done this process at the municipality several times, you know, for other services. So it's not like there's anything secretive or anything that's being overlooked.
Okay, I'm going to move to calling the question. So motion's already on the floor, it's moved and seconded. Call the question. All those in favor and opposed? Councillor Geselbracht's opposed. That carries. All right, so that takes us on to item 12A. So we have mayor and council verbal updates. I guess we'll start with Councillor Geselbracht.
Yes, thank you. As the RDN representative, I'd like to report from our last meeting in October. We don't have a board meeting until next week. And this will be of particular interest to the mountain bikers throughout the RDN, is that it's been a sore point for the hikers and mountain bikers in the Dumont area, which is Waggles Road off of the extension of Biggs, that biosolids, the RDN program to take biosolids from their facility on Hammond Bay, and they're pumped into the forest in order to promote growth. But unfortunately, it's quite a smell, and it's mucky, and those areas have basically been closed down. So what the RDN has done has approved an extension of the contract to truck the biosolids, has extended it for another 5 years to Silvis Environmental Services. However, they are only going to finish off what they have stockpiled on Dumont area till the end of this year, and a new area on Blackjack Ridge, which is way down on Nanaimo Lakes Road, that has been vetted and surveyed for any adverse effect it might have on the watershed. And in the new year, all of those solids will be trucked down there. So the good news is Dumont is back open. The second thing I'd like to report on is the passing of what is probably our oldest and longest-lived resident of Lantzville, Mrs. Lorraine Negrin. Lorraine was married for many, many years with Benny Negrin, the Negrin farm, but Lorraine came from a pioneer family as well, the Dunbars, who still maintain a smaller portion of their farm off of Metro Drive. Lorraine was 96, a beautiful woman. I actually sang in the church choir with Lorraine for many years, and will treasure those memories of Lorraine. And I know her remaining son, Danny, wrote a moving obituary in our local paper. Anyway, a piece of history has passed on. So thank you.
Okay, and I'll go to Councillor Proctor next.
I don't have a report, thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Savage.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the fire department again for a fabulous fireworks display this year. It was just spectacular, and on the water was different perspective, very interesting down there. So great job. And of note, the fire department for a number of years used to raise the money on top of putting the show on. They'd sell calendars and so on. So it's been a real history, the fire department and fireworks. And also all the reports of how polite the kids were in different areas, going door to door with the trick-or-treating. Lots of people mentioned that too. So all in all, a great night. And we did not get the Northern Lights. There was a chance we could have, so that was too bad. But all in all, good night.
For myself, yeah, again, just to extend a big thank you to the volunteer fire department for putting on another excellent fireworks display. It was great having down the water. I managed to go down to the foot of Lavender there at Lavender Park, or I guess it's unofficially Lavender Park. And, it was really neat to see. There was a nice gathering of people down there, and it was a different show, but than what we're used to. But I think moving forward could be a nice new tradition for Lantzville. So again, my gratitude to Chief Rukas and the volunteer firefighters for putting that on, and also just to recognize that. I went to an event after that, and as I'm driving home later in the evening, those guys are still out there, cleaning up and getting all their gear together and packing up and going back to their homes and families well after the fireworks. I think I saw some trucks coming maybe 9:45, leaving that area. So again, thank you to the volunteer fire department. Other than that, we'll move on to item 12C of our agenda. So we have council committee and district representative appointments. So there's one we have 2 spots for the library board. So I don't know if anybody's prepared to make these motions. Through to council. So Councillor Proctor, go ahead.
Unless somebody really, really wants to take my place, I'm happy to stay on the library board, but if somebody else wants it, they can make that motion.
All right, so through to Councillor Geselbracht.
Yes, I move that pursuant to the Library Act, council appoints Councillor Proctor as the District of Lantzville's representative to serve on the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board of Trustees for a term ending December 31st, 2022.
Okay, and do we have a seconder to that?
Second.
Second by Councillor Wilson. Any discussion on that appointment? Okay, hearing none, I'll move to call in question. All those in favor and opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously. And then go to the second half. Looking for the alternate.
I'll step up and be the alternate.
Okay, so is someone prepared to make that motion? So go ahead, Councillor Geselbracht.
The pursuant to the Library Act, council appoints Councillor Wilson as the District of Lantzville alternate representative to serve on the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board of Trustees for a term ending December 31st, 2022.
And do we have a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Proctor. Any discussion on this? Okay, hearing or seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. That takes us on to item 13, which is introduction of late items. Any late items to be introduced? Okay, seeing and hearing none, that takes us on to introductions of notices of motion. Any notices of motion?
Yeah, I'll make a notice of motion, just that I'll, with respect to sending out a letter to residents of the Winds, as well as the Blackjack, Clark Drive, and Alger residents. I'll work with staff on that, preparing a motion regarding sending out a letter, updating them on the progress towards getting water.
Sure. Okay, and there's no public clarification, so we've gotten through our agenda, so I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Recording stopped.